Have you ever wondered what radio consultants are saying about how to integrate websites and other digital platforms into the radio station's day to day operations? Well, today we'll find out as we talk to radio consultant, author, and fellow podcaster, Andy Meadows. Hi, it's Jim, and welcome to Better Radio Websites, the podcast that wants to help you get more visitors and the most revenue from your radio station website. And this week we have a real treat for you and for me as well. I've wanted to have a radio consultant on the podcast for a while, and I finally got one. Andy Meadows is a Texas-based radio consultant. He's also author and chief editor for RadioUpdate.com. Now, Andy grew up in radio. His family owned a station in the Texas Hill Country, and he worked his way up there, starting at a young age, all the way up to the LKCM radio group in Dallas-Fort Worth, where he served as operations manager and digital director. And get this, while he was digital director there, they accumulated some of the highest digital stats in the entire country. I can't wait to ask him about that. And today, in addition to overseeing RadioUpdate.com and hosting a weekly Radio Influencers podcast, Andy consults numerous clients on programming, digital operations, sales, basically everything. He does it all. So glad to have you here. Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction. I didn't even remember half of that stuff. So, no.
Yeah, I want to know the entire story. I'm all about radio history. So history about radio stations, history about DJs and how they got into the business, and especially with you, because you're a second generation or third generation broadcaster?
Second generation. My father started when he was 18, right out of high school. So, second generation. And both my brothers also still work in radio as well.
Oh, okay. So how did you transition from a small market to getting the Dallas gig? I mean, were there a lot of stops in between? Did you make a lot of stops like most personalities do?
Well, no, and interestingly, so my story is a little different than my dad's. My dad was from the era of 2-3 years at each spot. So all of us kids were born in different states. But then my parents purchased a small market AM FM, and so we all grew up working there. So that was, we lived there for a long time. But I worked at the group my parents owned until I was probably 19 or 20, somewhere in there. I ran small market FM while I was in college, like during the summer. I would go back and I did mornings and ran it. And then I jumped to LKCM Radio Group when I was probably 23. I know I was 23 because when I became program director, their nickname for me was the 23-year-old. So I had to have been
Yeah.
When you people that work for you are a little older than you, sometimes they come up with a derogatory nickname for the young guy. But
is it bring your kids to work month or year?
Well, and I, since it's changed, but at the time I looked really freaking young too. So it definitely added to it. But a lot of people didn't realize when I started there as an on-air talent that I'd been a program director in a small market. I literally had grown up in radio. So I think when the ownership saw me out doing remotes and things, I think they were kind of impressed with my, knowledge base and how I kind of knew a little bit about, a lot more about the business than they expected a 23-year-old, I guess.
Yeah. And so you went from PD to OM, I guess?
Yeah. So I was there quite a while. I was there 16 years. So I started as on air. 6 months in, I became the PD. And then probably about 2 years later, or maybe a year later, we bought an AM, we bought an FM in Corsicana, Texas, and they needed somebody to run it. So I went down there for 2 years and ran that station. And then when I came back to DFW, I was the ops guy for the group. And I don't think I added digital until, because at that time, that was probably 2005, 2006, something like that.
Wow.
So we didn't, I added digital a couple years later when that really took off. And it sounds good to say we had the highest digital stats per capita at the time, but there was a team of folks that worked with me that were all really freaking good. I had the guy that worked directly for me, Jared Darter, was just a digital genius. So he was always ahead of on everything, and so he made me look really good. And we had on air talent that were also great about embracing it and didn't resist the digital stuff.
What were you doing in order to get these huge numbers that you were getting?
Well, some of it was kind of cheating by today's standards because it was prior to the algorithm changing. You remember when, like, in the beginning when you started the Facebook, 90% of the people that had that were your fans or followers saw your stuff every day. So we went from like where when we had like 50 or 60,000 fans, every post would have like 35,000 people seeing it, and then when they changed it and they started accepting ad dollars and wanting to get posts boosted, those numbers dropped down dramatically. I mean, it was like you could see it overnight. It went from like 35,000 people seeing every one to like 3,500 seeing every one, and you had to work harder. So that's what I always tell stations when you're trying to catch a heritage station. It's almost impossible to do now without spending some money on the sponsored and boosted post, because they already have that 50, 75, 100,000 people following them that you don't.
Sure.
Because you just started,
Yeah. Have you always been kind of like had a forward thinking mindset? I know that a lot of consultants have to have this kind of like, okay, what's coming up next? We have to plan for the unexpected and everything like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe because I've been in radio for so long, and my dad was, some people grow up in a radio station, but we literally worked it. I mean, I started running tapes and stuff when I was a little kid. I think I cut my first commercial when I was 5, and yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so we really worked there. So he taught me an enormous amount about the business. So it's kind of helped me through the years, where there have been times where I feel like I'm a little ahead of it too much, like where I would try to do stuff and either the listeners weren't ready or the industry wasn't ready, and I'd kind of go out on a limb. So there've been a couple times where it's bit me in the butt, like thinking that we could do something that we weren't quite ready to do yet.
Sure. So how do you consult radio stations now digitally? Did you have to, when you started off doing consulting, were like a radio consultant and then you had to kind of put a digital hat on every so often, and do you see consultants being kind of wearing both hats now?
Well, you have to really, in my opinion. So I didn't start consulting until 2019. So I'd already done quite a bit of digital stuff, and to me, it all works together. Like if you don't, what I always say is it starts on air. Like if you're not creating great on air content, you don't have things to take to digital. You know what I mean? So right. It kind of it's not like a different hat to me that you have to put on, because the website is an extension of the on air and the brand, and same with the social feeds. I mean, it all kind of feeds into each other now. It's this big circle. I call it surrounding the listener, because you want to be on every platform they're on. So yeah, it all works together. It's not a separate thing.
Sure. I have a lot of salespeople who still don't get how the website fits into the overall scheme of the radio station. And I tell them, I said, well, look, why don't you think about the website as another radio station? Mm-hmm. Everything that's on air is on the website in some way, or maybe the jocks are referring to something that's on the website. So it's really all the same. But think about it as another radio station. You have the top leaderboard, that could be, or the homepage, that could be the morning show. And then you have all these other pages and stuff. Then you have different sponsored locations around the website. And think of it as a radio station, not this is over here and we're just doing radio. And to sit there and explain that to some salespeople, and you see their eyes get a little bit bigger and like, whoa, really? I can go sell that.
Okay. I call that coaching for those light bulb moments where it really just the light goes off. But no, you're so right. It absolutely is. And the thing I always tell people is the website, a station's website is its most valuable digital asset. because it's the one that you own. So like you don't own those social feeds. So at any point, like I was talking a minute ago, how the algorithm changed and it really affected the post. At any point, that stuff can change out from under you, and something that you were selling or doing really well with socially, the rules change and you can't do it anymore. So the website you own, that's your website. You can do whatever you want on it, and it's silly to me that a lot of radio stations kind of neglect their website and just treat it as something that's just, oh yeah, we'll get stuff on there when we do, and maybe there's outdated stuff on there, but who really cares?
Yeah.
It's sad.
So when you consult a radio station, you go into a radio station for the first time to be their consultant. How does the website fit into your conversation with them? I mean, talk about somebody who's one of those people right there not doing very much with their website.
Well, for starters, I'd look at and review all that stuff before I ever end up on site, so I can. That's the first thing I look at because I'm streaming the station through there. I mean, I use a logger on client stations, but when I'm just looking at a prospect, I just go to their website, stream it just like anybody else would, and I make notes about their website, their social feeds. So by the time I get on site, I've already reviewed everything that you're doing, and not to come in and just crap on everything, but to be able to really show them how it's a lot easier than they think to improve all these things, and like I said, it all works. It all works together.
Sure. Do you coach them on the kind of content that they have on their website?
Yeah, because I'm a firm believer that all on-air talent should blog, and if you're not a writer and you can't use the assistance of AI to help you be a writer, then create a video vlog or an audio video podcast. So I've never met an on-air personality that couldn't create some kind of digital content, and it's usually just taking something they're already doing on air and teaching them how to turn this into a blog, turn this into a podcast, turn this into a video for the website and social media. So it's I always start with the things they're already doing, because then it doesn't feel like, oh, this guy's adding another task to my to-do list every day. No, take that great feature you do in the morning that you struggle to keep a reasonable length. You're the PD wants you to keep those breaks 4 minutes, and that feature always goes 7 or 8 minutes. You know what that tells me? That's a podcast. Do that as a podcast first, and go as long as you want with the feature. You know what I mean? Go 30 minutes, and then take the best 4 minutes, put it on air, and drive them to the website to see the full 30-minute feature. And so when you get them to start thinking like that, it becomes a lot easier.
Sure. And it's probably more than likely something, if they want to go that long, it's something that they care about. So
right,
to get them doing something that they care about, it's really not that not much work involved in doing something that you're really passionate about.
And it turns a negative into a positive. So they're sitting there, we're complaining about how long they're going with that feature, and it's like, no, man, do it ahead of time, and go as long as you want, because that's such an amazing feature, and that's why, like you said, you believe in it. So yeah, let's run with it and really expand on it.
Yeah, when I was with Clear Channel, we're talking just late 2000s, and they required everybody across the board to blog daily. Absolutely hated it. Everybody in the station absolutely hated it. But I don't think that we were given the proper why. How does this fit in? You are doing this to connect with your listeners whenever you're not on the radio. Gosh, and if I'd have known then what I know now, it would have been probably the best part of my day to do all of that, and so I can reach the listeners whenever I wasn't on the radio.
Well, and the thing they did wrong, and I think they do a fair amount of things right when it comes to digital, and they were ahead on a lot of stuff, and they continue to be ahead on stuff. But the thing they got wrong about that is they didn't tie rewards to it, or enough rewards. There wasn't really an incentive. It was more just like, every day I want you to write 2 blog posts, no matter what. And to me, I think if you tie the rewards to that, and you start saying, we're going to have a digital employee of the week in every group, and they're going to get $100 a week, whatever you're giving away, but something where you really, because if people are writing blogs that nobody reads, it doesn't matter anyway. Like incentivize them to write a blog that actually gets a lot of clicks and shares and likes and all that. But you can't do that without throwing rewards on top, I don't
Yeah.
think.
I agree. I agree. Absolutely agree. I know some station owners that they have like local news, and then every so often they'll incentivize their news people to create news stories that again get the most clicks and shares and stuff like that. And because whatever the website wins, they should, they can win as well, and it does help them perform a whole lot better on another level.
Well, and the beauty of that stuff is it's all very trackable. Like even at Radio Update, because we have a couple staff contributors that create content for us, but a lot of them, a lot of our content is submitted from people, and then we have paid partner contributors and stuff like that. But we look at everything based on the amount of traction that it gets, and we publish every week a top 10 to show, and people get competitive about it. They're like, man, I didn't even have one in the top 10 this week. Are you kidding me? What do I need to do to so even just that kind of stuff, when there is an incentive tied to it, just like we do with sales, and showing the top earners each week. That's how you got to think on the content creation side.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. That's probably one of my favorite parts about Radio Update is seeing that what got the most engagement last week. Because that's a good article for me because it lets me know what the audience is most interested in.
Right. Yeah, and that's the great thing, because I want the contributors to check that, to see the leaderboard, because they get to see what's working and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a reason people are clicking on those. There's something about that. Either we try not to do clickbait titles. I always tell people, like, clickbait's okay as long as there's substance behind it. But I hate a redirect clickbait where it's like you're trying to get me to click this and then it has nothing to do with the title. Give me some substance behind that. But that, sometimes that's what drives the top stuff, is that the headline was amazing. But for the most part on our stuff, it seems to be the topical, the stronger the content, the more honest and open people are about what radio's really going through, the more likely it's going to work with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, getting back to stations, other than like the air talent blogging and that sort of thing, what other kinds of content do you see that is resonating well with listeners and audience, and what are you kind of instructing them to do? Do you look at data with their audience and saying, well, this audience might like obituaries a whole lot more than anything else? I mean, what are you looking at and what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, obviously we track everything, and same kind of approach we use at Radio Update. You see whatever's working, we're going to add fuel to the fire and try to do more of that. But the other two, besides so always start with the people on staff, and I'm not just on air personalities. Literally, I like getting everybody involved in it because everyone wears so many hats nowadays. So if there's anyone in the building that has an aptitude for it, I like to get them creating content and incentivize them to do that, so they have a chance to win the rewards just like anybody else, regardless of what their position is. So once you get everybody on staff creating content that kind of fits their strengths, then create some promotions that drive user-generated content, because that's another untapped resource. Like a lot of these stations that have the really passionate fans and followers and listeners, they'll create some amazing content for you if you just ask them to, especially
Right.
if you throw an incentive in there. So user-generated content, and the other one is content partnerships. Like I think it's crazy to me that we have people that have been on the air for a long time that are really good on air that refuse to do any kind of digital content, but yet there are people. So even when that's part of their job and they're being asked to, yet there are people in their market that are creating all this content that nobody's asking them to create. You know what I mean? They're creating their own podcast. They're influencers on social media. And so when you identify those people in your market, which every market has those regardless of the size, like because it doesn't take as many fans or followers to be an influencer in a town with 60,000 as it does to be in a town with with 6 million. So every market has those people. Find them and partner with them. Share their content. If it makes sense to bring them in on some brand deals, then and of course compensate them for that stuff. But why not create some outside content partnerships with some of those people in your market?
Yeah, and speaking of incentives, talking to the small markets who don't have, well, we don't have any budget to pay for that. Like, well, just a simple link back to their podcast or their blog or whatever like that could be really all the incentive that they're looking for.
Right. A lot of the times that's exactly it. And we've all done stuff like this. We've all traded out with a photographer to get them to come and take photos at one of our events and ran commercials. So some of it's just that. Hey, they got a podcast. Let's treat it like you would on a sports talk station where they run the 45 seconds of Colin Cowherd and the last 15 seconds is a sponsored tag telling them hear the next thing Colin said. Here, do the same thing for a local podcaster in exchange for getting them to create some digital content for you. That's exactly it.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's very good stuff. So, what about AI? How are you instructing stations to either use AI, either with on air or digital content or prep or news? I mean, how are you making that conversation happen?
All of the above. I mean, I'm a huge believer in embracing it. Because so many of these stations are short-staffed, and so what I tell people is, and the ironic thing is, everyone in small and medium markets thinks that's only a small and medium market problem, and it's not. It's the entire industry. Everybody's running with a short staff. So if you can make your staff of 5 seem like 50, if they all embrace AI, and I do caution people like on the on-air stuff, like we all want to run with throwing the AI voices on air right away. I mean, to me, I think the right way to do it is to tell listeners it's AI. I mean, could you use it as a ringer to get phones going and no one noticed because it's 5 seconds? Absolutely, you could do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. To get a bit going on a morning show, use AI and make it sound like a listener. But for the most part, listeners kind of think it's cool when you mention that it's AI. So I think there's ethical ways to use the voices and the AI generated content, but you should absolutely be using AI to pull clips from your show and turn it like this Riverside platform. It works great for generating clips using AI. Opus Clip and Spike Studio are 2 others. And Show Prep, the Radio Content Pros, a AI driven show prep site that my friend Tracy Johnson created that is amazing, and you can't compete with the volume. Like within a story being posted, within like 30 seconds, it's got it in radio speak, and here's your tease, here's your content. Here, oh, you want to put it on social? Here's your social verbiage. I mean, yeah. So I know that there are some folks that have a holdup with AI because they think it's trying to steal their job and stuff, but what will steal your job is somebody else who's embracing AI, not AI.
Right.
That's
right. Yeah, that was one of the quotes early on where AI is not going to replace someone. Someone with AI will replace somebody without it.
Yeah, and we're so short staffed now in this industry that it's a huge advantage to use this stuff because it allows you to do things that stations with smaller budgets would never be able to do. Like I've seen some of the AI generated stuff you've got on your site, and the images are incredible, and you can create that stuff with a couple clicks that before you'd have to pay somebody a lot of money to come up with a really specific photo of this DJ on the moon because he did a post because he did an on-air break talking about what it would be like if he went to the moon. There's just so many incredible things that you can do now with it cheaply that you got to do it. But yeah, there folks right now working on being able to run a radio station entirely with AI. Absolutely.
Yeah, that just it doesn't seem like, even though it can pull all of this local information in and tie it into breaks, and let's say it could pull all that information in real time from Facebook and Nextdoor and all these other different local information sources or whatever, you're never going to see that morning show person in your grocery store or at the car dealership on the weekend where you can go out and shake their hand. They're never going to be on the stage introducing Garth Brooks or anybody else like that. You're not going to be able to see and know them, hear about the stories that happened to them over the weekend because traffic was backed up on this the place or whatever, and they were in traffic alongside you, and how COVID affected them and their family versus, you're never going to get that one-on-one connection. Would you agree?
Yeah, and so that's the argument for why all on-air talent should make it a point to do all those things, because there are definitely folks that have gotten away from that because they don't where they almost like hide in the building sometimes. Like you can't if that's you, because I'm a little bit of an introvert, so I always had to make myself go do that external stuff. I had to turn on the switch. I don't naturally like just love being on stage in front of people. So I had to make myself do that. And if you're somebody like me, you've got to do that stuff. You've got to go do the stage intros. You got to get out and do the remotes. You got to do the events. You got to partner with charity events and go out and do all those things, because that's what separates you from AI, which is getting to where like its ability to do anecdotes and stuff. Like, I don't know if you've heard any of them where they'll have AI do a full podcast and it'll tell stories that sound like legit things that happened to somebody when they were a kid. And it sounds really real. So it's going to get to a point on air where it's very hard to distinguish whether that's a real on-air personality or AI. But the thing that you just mentioned is impossible for it to ever do. I mean, we have to go do those things and make those personal connections, which we should have been doing anyway, because that's the best thing about radio.
That's right. That's absolutely right. All right. So tell me about Radio Update. How did you go from being, in radio to doing consultant and now doing this radioupdate.com?
So it is one thing I do. Consulting is still the main gig, of course. And luckily I have some good folks on staff that help me at radio. One of them's my wife, Jill Meadows. She helps a ton on the visual stuff. She's much better at that than I am. And then Stephanie Blue is our staff writer that helps out a ton, and she goes through a lot of the submitted content and stuff and helps me out. But that allows me to act as the chief editor. So I still sign off on, especially the submitted content. I want to see that before it goes up, because I really want Radio Update to focus on the things that are moving the industry forward and people that are coming up with innovative ideas and unfiltered opinions, on folks that have worked places where it didn't go as well as they expected, or where they had a difference of opinion on direction. I want to become a platform for people to share that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like Update because it feels more accessible. It feels like radio people are doing it rather than the other ones out there who, whenever you go there, it's always something about the big corporations it's the iHeart, it's Odyssey, it's Town Square. Every other thing is about this huge media corporation, and the smaller and medium markets are like, okay, well, I don't have ginormous budgets, and I don't care what they're doing, but Q2 and everything, what their plans are, and that doesn't affect me.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I mean that's one of the things that we focused on early on, because the pressure initially is to just like share who got promoted and who got fired and who got this, and if there's a major shift like with some of the iHeart ones last year, we posted about some of that stuff because that had massive impacts across the industry. But for the most part, we try to shy away from so and so got promoted to assistant PD in this mark, because that matters to that guy and that guy's family. But I want to focus on the bigger stuff, because now is a really interesting time for our industry, where a lot of things are happening really quickly. There's a lot of fear out there. And I want to be a place for like-minded people who feel like there is a way to kind of turn this thing around for our industry if we just focus on the kind of stuff that you focus on, the website stuff, the digital stuff, things that could replace the lost terrestrial revenue like that if we just embraced it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, you have to shine that light and be the guide to them, because a lot of folks are thinking, oh, well, should I even continue doing radio because I don't know how to do a website or anything like that? Well, no, you can. You can easily do it, and we're going to show you how to do that. And there's a bright future for those who don't mind just stepping out just a little bit.
Well, and I think a lot of them, because I'll talk to them about obviously their websites and the apps and a lot of things you do, but also, like, I'm a firm believer in being more studios being more video friendly. So, but whether it's talking to them about their website or adding cameras to the studio and kind of updating their lighting a little bit, their first fear is we don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend, and I'm like, I'm on a 4K camera that cost $120. Dude, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
they're just a lot of them got quotes for things years ago, and they just kind of think that's what it cost. And all this stuff has gotten less expensive, and there weren't a lot of upsides to COVID, but one of the only upsides was that a lot of this equipment became less expensive because it was so necessary on the on the consumer level that. Like my engineer friends call it, like, what is it, prosumer gear?
Right.
It was, that's why a lot of this stuff is affordable now, and it's easier to use. You don't have to be a tech head or a video producer to be able to run these things.
Yeah. Yeah. This SM7B is the most expensive thing in this studio, because I'm actually recording this on my iPhone that was just in my pocket a few moments ago, and I have a $19 plant light that I got off of Amazon.
Yeah.
That is my lighting for this.
This light and a video buddy. I've got a buddy who owns a video production company, and he steers me in the direction of so I don't waste money on things. And this is a $60 light that he sent me the link to. And when I was at NAB in New York last year, the panel that got the most attention wasn't the panel that I did. It was a panel of YouTubers. And I wandered over to it because I was interested in it. And there were so many radio and TV people lined up to hear these four young YouTubers talk. And this girl that had, I cannot remember her name. It's in my blog. But this girl that has about 500,000 followers, that's a YouTuber, an engineer, a radio engineer in the crowd asked her, how do you keep from going broke buying all this equipment to do your YouTube channel? And she goes, I have 500,000 YouTube subscribers. I've never filmed anything on anything other than my iPhone. And she held up her iPhone, and the crowd kind of, it stunned them because her content looks amazing. They just run clips of her content and it looks phenomenal. And, but it's just learning how to use that gear to get the most out of it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Andy, this has been, man, you and I feel like we could talk about radio and just everything all day long, but I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things on your plate, but tell folks how they can reach out to you and maybe even hire you as their consultant, because it sounds like you got everything lined up in order to move them forward.
So the website is radiostationconsultant.com, and my email is andy@radiostationconsultant.com. And I definitely encourage everybody to look at radioupdate.com as well and see that content. But I would love to get you on my Radio Influencers podcast I do for Radio Update as well.
Yeah.
So we could talk about some of the great things you're doing. And I love the websites that you create. It's really impressive stuff.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And man, I just really can't thank you enough for your time today.
Oh, no problem. I had fun.
It's so awesome to have Andy here on the podcast, and awesome to have you here as well. If you'd like to leave us a comment, we would so much appreciate that. Like and subscribe wherever you get this podcast. We appreciate that as well. And hey, we talked a lot about having a great website and promoting it well and just having it integrated with your radio station. If you don't have a platform that's good to have all of that stuff to where you can do all of those cool things that we were talking about, reach out to us at skyrocketradio.com. We look forward to seeing you there. Have an awesome week online making your radio station website better. We'll see you next time.